Assalamu alaikum guys, Avas here. So a while back I decided to learn game development and I was presented with different choices, but two engines were particularly on top, Unity and Unreal Engine. Did some research and Unity was one for me, at least for that time. So through my journey of learning Unity, I thought why not make an actual game, and what better way to learn game development than to actually make games. But because I'm not too creative, so I didn't even bother to think about my own idea. Plus, I wasn't even gonna publish the game. So it was too soon for me to think about my own ideas. And it was just a challenge for myself, considering that I worked on 2D platformers before, but not 3D games. So I went ahead to replicate a hyper casual game like Temple Run, where you can run and collect coins and avoid enemies or objects. So in this video, I'll be struggling with making a hyper casual game. I hope you liked the video. So let's get started. There was no actual planning for this game, but I was clear about few things. That I won't waste my time on character modeling. Totally not because I'm bad at it, but just because, yeah, whatever. And second thing was animation, because it takes a lot of time to create a good animation, which actually looks realistic. So I went to Maximo.com and imported a dummy character and some animations along with it. After that, first and most important thing for this game is the movement of player, because that's literally what this game is all about, a running player. So I experimented with different ways of moving the player and finally decided to go with the transform.translate. Of course, it has some drawbacks, like if you collide with objects, it gives you stuggy kind of movement, but it wasn't gonna collide with objects here. Wait, let me correct that. It was gonna collide with objects, but player would die as soon as it would collide with objects. So you won't be able to see what kind of movement it had. So this should work in this scenario. And after that I made the camera follow our player so that it's not left behind when we are moving, and created some enemy objects to test the collision effect. After that I decided to change our character before it was too late, but when I did that, let's just say our player started to have some physical difficulties. In other words, he learned some new movements, but not the kind of movements I wanted, so I had to fix that. Anyway, I fixed it and moved on to the next problem that we were having, which was when the character goes to certain distance, it falls from the ground to some infinite hole. So I did some magical coding, or in other words, I looked on internet and copied the code. And our level started to work fine. As you can see, when we go to certain distance, ground gets regenerated and deletes the previous ground, so we won't overload the game with a lot of ground objects. Of course, it didn't work on the first try, it took some trial and error, but it finally did work. So the game was looking just fine, but there was still something missing here. The ground was looking too empty, so I went to texture.com to download some textures. I wasn't sure of what to go with, so I tried different textures. I downloaded them and imported to our scene and applied on the ground. I tried the road texture, and there are some that I did not record here. Then I applied the dirt texture. Here I was happy with the road texture, so I decided to go with it. Still the game was looking pretty empty, so now is the time to create some enemy objects that you can collide with. So I went to devassets.com and downloaded a free asset which is called desert environment, I think. And yeah, this is called desert environment. I downloaded it and imported it into our scene, so I created different variations to avoid the effect of reappearing objects over and over again. Again, there are different ways you can achieve the effect of appearing enemies on your ground. I decided to generate some spawn point on the ground. Every time new ground gets generated, objects will randomly appear on these spawn points. a certain distance. So here you can see a game working properly up till this point, which is some kind of achievement, I guess. And then there was time to create a death effect. Of course, I went with the ragdoll effect, and when I decided to do that, I was having, let's just say, some difficulties doing that. Okay, this is not the right way of doing it, but I achieved the death effect after some trial and error, and here you can see the effect working. And of course the GTA wasted effect was important too. But now there was nothing that you can collect in this game as a reward, so I decided to jump onto the asset store and download some coins. I wanted to go with the knife theme, so I wanted some kind of coin that would look good with it. So I downloaded this package and imported it into our scene. Again, I jumped into coding to create this, to spawn our coin on the ground, and created a coin set. So it is working fine. I also created a coin counter so you can see how many coins have you collected. The game was looking pretty empty at that time, and then I went to free 3D assets and looked into some assets, and I downloaded a building asset so I can have buildings around the road so it looks like a city kind of theme. So it is a pretty good asset, you can download it for free. Anyway, then I imported into my scene and applied it on the road. I did experiment with this position, and finally I decided to put it on both sides of the road, and here it is. It is looking fine for me, but the problem here is the road is kind of looking not good. It looks like it's flying in the air, so I applied pavement on both sides of the road so it looks more natural. So here it is. So now the game looks and works fine, but as I said earlier, I wanted a night theme, so I decided to turn off all the lights and created some fog effect. And now was the time to create some lights. I went ahead in Blender and created some street lights. It is not the most perfect street light, but it works for me. So I imported into Unity and applied on the road, and then I applied some emission effect, and after that I applied some post processing to make it look better. So now you can see games looks much better than before. But looks of game isn't the only thing that matters. There are other things too, like you should be able to play the game, and that is the most important thing. So the game was pretty badly optimized actually, using so many lights and stuff like that. So I decided to dump this project and create a new one. Not exactly a new one, but I removed the lights and decreased the quality of textures to make it much more optimized and playable. So here is the final results of this game. I converted the scene into daylight and messed up with some fog, and here is the final results. I know the game doesn't look beautiful and amusing to the eyes, but considering it's my first actual 3D game, so it was a win for me. And for all the new creators out there, in the very beginning it gets really intimidating to learn Unity, even though it is the easiest engine to learn, especially coding, but after a while you get used to it. No, just kidding. You don't get used to coding, that's why you need Stack Overflow. But jokes aside though, it was a great experience for me. I could have finished the project in 3 to 4 days, but optimization took a little time for me. I hope you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe to see more videos. And see you guys in the next video.